The baby just went down for his afternoon nap, so I thought I would take the advantage of the time to record a brief video about GitHub and Blogdown. GitHub is essentially just track changes, but for code. So if you're used to using track changes within Word, when you're running a document, it's the same idea, except this is for your code. It's useful when you're working with other people, even if you're by yourself and the only other person you work with is yourself in 6 months' time. But I mean, we'll just cover some basics. It also makes it really easy to make your work public, which is what we're going to use it for. In particular, we're going to make a website using Blogdown. Blogdown builds on R Markdown, and so the combination is fairly powerful. So to get started, we need to create a GitHub repository, a repo, and this is just where our code is going to live. So you open GitHub and you need to have an account, and then we're going to create a new repo. You can either use this green button, or if you go to your profile, you can actually click the little plus and you can say new repository. We're going to give it a name. A README is just some information at the top. When somebody comes to this repo, they're going to be able to read that content. Git-ignore, this just allows us to not have certain files be pushed to Git. And the license just makes it clear what people are allowed to do with it. You don't have to make any of these things if you don't want to, these three. What we need here is the website URL. Okay, we're now going to open, so we've now created a repo on GitHub. We're going to now open RStudio Cloud, and we're going to write in that. You'll recall that I had created a whole workspace just for this class. So we're going to that workspace, and actually I'll just push this across. And we want new project, except instead of clicking the big button, we're just going to say new project from Git repo. URL of your Git repo, so we're pasting that in. And what that's doing is just associating that this project with that repo. My kingdom for RStudio Cloud to load in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so this is a fresh computer, like as far as packages and things like that are concerned, so we're going to have to install some basics. We'll just grab the tidyverse really quickly. And of course we're going to need Blogdown, which is going to be doing so much of the work for us. You can see that we have in the files, we already have the git-ignore that we created when we created the repo. We have the license and we have a README. So while that's loading, we can have a look and we can see, well, it's example website, not my first website. So we can just add something to be a little bit more legible. So this is going to show up on the GitHub repo. It's a bit slow because of the computers being asked to, the RStudio servers being asked to do more than one thing at a time. Good content. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to set up a website that's going to be a series of R Markdown files. I wonder if it's done. Looks like it's done. Okay, not the most useful README in the world, but it's done. Anyway, so we've now got that, and we should, oopsies, big one, and we should also get, so we've installed the tidyverse, and we should also install Blogdown. Why isn't the just completely working? So I just highlighted that command, and then I ran it with command return. That's the shortcut for command return. If you have some text highlighted, then you can just hit command return and it'll run that text that you've highlighted. Gosh, it's being super slow. My Kingdom for a version of RStudio Cloud is good. It's useful, right? I've been using it for like 3, maybe 4 years. 3 or 4 years. And like it's great, but still very much in beta. Okay, so we've got Blogdown working. Just going to call the library so that it exists, but I am going to explicitly run it. I just wanted to do that again. So you type the first few letters. RStudio offers some completions, and if you want to accept that, you just hit tab and it completes it. Then the functions come up. So what we want is a new site. So here I'm just scrolling through the functions. This is actually more useful than you may think. A lot of times you do forget exactly what functions are in a package. And it's funny, but more useful than you may think. Anyway, so we want a new site. Okay, we can see we get the arguments that it takes come up, but we could also use the help and just have a look. The Blogdown help isn't great, but it's could be worse. So Blogdown works through a thing called Hugo, and so there's a bunch of development that's gone to Hugo. We're not going to interact with that directly. We're going to deal only with our Markdown files and things like that. But it's what those Markdown files are doing is just a layer on top of Hugo, so that's what that is. Format toml, I'm not entirely actually sure what that is. I think that's, or what the different options are here. Sample and theme. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different themes within Hugo you could choose. We're just going to use the default one, which comes from the person that put together Blogdown. But if you search for Hugo themes, then you could go and have a look at a whole bunch of different ones, and you could use them if you wanted to. Anyway, so we're just going to run this. Oh, well, you know, pretty much as it is. Let's see what happens. So you can see we're installing Hugo, but pretty quickly we actually have a website that's working. So now we want to, so it's showing up in the viewer panel. So now we want to make it our own. So we're going to just need to change some of the themes, some of the files. So this is the main thing. So config.toml is something that you're going to change. So this is config.toml. So we might like to change the title. This is if you wanted to change what's in the main menu, you could change these around. Description. So we hit save, and it's actually running this all the time. And you can see that we've changed. Okay, let's just say that we don't want Twitter showing up. So this is just to show you an example of manipulating the main menu. We can just delete it. If instead we wanted education, so and refresh that, and you can see how it's changed. Fairly easy. Let's add a blog post. So this is in content, post. Now the easiest way to do this is just to manipulate one of these markdowns. So we'll start with this one. There's a few things that we're going to need. We're going to need to add in a bibliography. For some reason, it's not being added. Bibliography. So this is just calling on a file that just doesn't exist at the moment, and so this is why we're having this issue at the moment. So we're just going to need to, actually we might just pull that out. Are you okay? Okay, so that was just causing some issues because it's continually trying to render as we are obtaining. So I'll just make the file. So let's just make we just want one citation so that we can have an example. We could cite daily price. We need to add an abstract. Okay. Anyway, now we need to add back in our bibliography. And hopefully it's okay now. Are you okay, mate? So the bibliography hasn't rendered. References.bib, bibliography, typo. Okay, and so now if we want a list of our references, it's just come up down the bottom, but we probably want to make a nice section for it. And so with that, all looking pretty good. So let's pretend that we were happy with this. So we've built a website with Blogdown. We need to try and get it onto the internet now. And so the first step of that is going to be pushing it to GitHub. So we're going to need to give GitHub some details. So the first thing we need to give it is a name, and then we need to give it an email address. And this is just because every time you commit something, it's associated with a name and email address. So I moved across to terminal. And we just need to set up our Git to use. So in my case, I'll just do that again because I think I made a mistake. So what it is, it's git config because we're configuring Git. It's global, and then the user email that we're going to need to use is, in this case, it's just that one. So depending on your own settings, you put in your own email address here that you use. So in my case, this is the email address that I use for GitHub. The other thing that we need to do is to set up the user. Now I think that the command is git config global user. Could it be user.name? Alright, let's try. Let's see. Okay, so it's committed it as Rohan. Okay, so what you need to type is git config global user.name Rohan Alexander, and then we can check what it's got by typing out all of that without the argument. So git config global user.name, and it spits back Rohan Alexander. So this is all looking good. We can now tell it to go and get this. Okay, so we're moving over to this panel up here, which is the Git. We're looking to review anything that's changed, and so there's a whole bunch of different things that have changed. We want to stage them. I think there's a way to do this all at once, but anyway, that's fine. It's done. To stage them. So the stage. Then we want to just pull. And so what this is doing is it's checking the GitHub repo. So this is your local version, and then there's the GitHub version. So this is what we're doing while we're pulling is we're just checking on the GitHub version. Is there something that is more recent that we need to update our own system with? Because if we were to push our own changes before we did that, we might have some conflicts. And in dealing with Git, as in dealing with relationships or geopolitical issues, you really want to avoid conflicts. So we pull first. So I'm just going to pull. It should say up to date because we're the other person using this. Okay, first commit. And so when we click push, if everything goes well, it's going to ask us for our username. So in my case, my GitHub username is Rohan Alexander, and it's trying to create. That's trying to create something. So so then you put in your password for GitHub. With some luck, this will work. So we can check that it's right by going to GitHub. So we saw that This is all we had there initially, so if we refresh and if there's some content there, then it has worked. Indeed, we refresh and there is some content there, and so it does work. So that's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to host this on Netlify. So we go to Netlify. So what Netlify is going to do is we're going to link Netlify with GitHub. So you create an account using your GitHub pages. Say new site from Git. Say GitHub, and now it's going to ask for which repo you want. What did I do? Why did I do that? And I think we called it example website. Right? Why isn't this live? Gosh, this live. Example website, master, Hugo, publish. This is all looking good. And so Netlify is going to GitHub. It is grabbing our public directory and it's trying to deploy it. This takes a while, but not as long as our Studio Cloud takes. Okay, so allegedly it is public. Let's see. There you go. So it is live at trusting/banach/blah blah blah.netlify.app. If you want to change that, you can change that. I think it's site settings. First website. My first star 304 website. Or maybe we could say Rohan's star 304 website. There we go. And so now if we go to this website, you can see we are on the internet. I'll prove it to you. Oh, I'm not going to be able to remember the thing. Okay. I'll prove it to you. Going to go to, what is it? Rohan's dash. There you go. We are on the internet. So, in one sense, that's all there is to it. And in another sense, this is just the beginning of the journey. So I hope you found that useful. And now you should be able to use Blogdown and GitHub to submit your assignment. See you later.